Hi, this is Andrew, and this is Keen On, the daily now.tv chat show with some of the world's leading thinkers and writers. Hello, everybody. Earlier this month in March, we did a fascinating show with my old friend and Los Angeles Times book critic, Bethanne Patrick, the best literary friend of Keen On, a show about a number of books dealing with our age of disruption, including Kakutani, the ex-editor of book editor, a book writer on the New York Times, and Fareed Zakaria, all writing about our age of disruption, all promising a new world in this revolutionary age. But what happens if we go extinct, Bethanne? I know there's a really interesting new book out, On Extinction, Beginning Again at the End by Ben Ware. It's another book that's come across your radar. How would Ware fit in with the Kakutanis and the Zakarias of the world?
What I'll say about Ben Ware's book, and Ben Ware is a true academic scholar and philosopher, is that this is really radical politics, okay? This is not necessarily about saving things. This is about saying we have to start from the end. What happens if humanity becomes extinct? It's about going all the way and saying, let's look at the reality that humanity has a finite, hold on this world. And if we ignore that, then we can't solve anything. Because if we think that we're, immortal as a species, that we can just keep going on. One of the things in the London Review of Books, review of both On Extinction and I believe Adam Phillips's book that we talked about we
will talk about Phillips.
We will talk about Phillips's book. Yeah. So is that 99% of the species who have ever walked the earth are now extinct. Okay, think about that for a moment. 99%. Why do humans think that we're immune to extinction? And I think that Ben Ware takes a very careful, but also philosophical, meaning balanced and varied look at what might happen to us when we go extinct. And
he talks about beginning again at the end. What exactly does that mean?
That means let's assume that humanity will not last forever. And what does that mean? So how do we move backward from that and improve things for as many people as possible in the meantime? What should we be focusing on? What should be, and he is, using Kant, Adorno, all kinds of philosophers to talk about this. So the answer isn't necessarily, oh, humanity is going to go extinct, so let's all just,
party. It's not Decameron.
No, it's not the Decameron, exactly.
Partying in the graveyard.
Yeah, we have to, if we're looking at this reality, what do we want to spend our time on? How do we want the earth to be? What kind of environment do we want to live in? There's, a lot of people, the old joke is, the dinosaurs didn't know that they were going extinct. I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe there were signs. We as humans have had a lot of signs about the earth as our habitat and ourselves becoming less and less important and more destructive to our habitat. And so, Ben Ware wants to say, this is something that's going to happen. It's kind of like mortality.
Does he celebrate it? Is he disappointed? Is he saddened by the end of humanity on this extinction moment?
He is very, very sanguine about it, because he's already thought all the way through, Andrew. He's already done the thinking. A lot of us don't want to think about it, you know.
It's like thinking about, I mean, it's a species level extinction. We all know we as individuals die. So is he suggesting we just rethink it in a broader sense?
He is. And, you know, so many people who want to just say, I'm going to think about my next order of avocado toast instead of, you know, contemplating the end of my kind. But he says, if you actually think it through and assume that just as we all die individually, if you assume that humanity is going to end, it allows you a certain kind of peace. It allows you a certain sense of, oh, what do I want to do now? What matters to me? And for most of us, you know, that has to do a great deal with community. And so,
although you could say, why am I even going to care about community? I know this whole show's coming to an end. It's going to shut down. So what do I care about anything?
Right. But it's not about, you know, what he's saying is, it's not about what you can do for the community. But remember, no one ever on their deathbed says, I wish I had worked more. Most people on their deathbed say, I wish I'd spent more time with these friends or these family members or this loved one. And maybe that's what we all
I mean, I wonder what humanity, our species, will say literally on its deathbed. It's all about beginning at the end, or the end of the beginning. And another of our books this week, which is Playing Around with Time, is by Britain's leading psychoanalyst, Adam Phillips. He has a new book out, Missing Out in Praise of the Unlived Life, imagining, and this sort of, oddly enough, dovetails with Ware's book on extinction, doesn't it, Bethanne?
Well, interestingly enough, the book that it might be that we have a different title in the U.S. In the U.S., the FSG edition is On Giving Up. It's the same thing, on the unlived life, right? And the cover of On Giving Up in the U.S. shows, you know, a man in sort of Oscar Wilde costume, his top hat on the ground next to him, just lying back, you know, in a pose of sleep, coma, death. And I love the fact that Phillips talks about what we give up in terms of things versus giving up completely on life. Okay, this is something that is central to this book. It's really, it's about.
He's a brilliant writer.
It's a brilliant writer, and it's about giving up and failure being a catalyst to change, right? So, in talking about upheaval, in talking about extinction, in talking about things that are really disrupting or disruptive in society right now, Phillips is saying, and again, brilliant writer, that if you decide that you've lost something, it often leads to changing things up entirely. And that is something that actually can save humankind. I'm not saying that Phillips is speaking directly to Ware, and Phillips is certainly not saying, oh, we're not going extinct. What he's talking about is much more individual.
I mean, Phillips seems to be writing about, in On Giving Up, about living without regret. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. What should we give up in order to really live, in order to live in the present? And so he addresses, you know, some of the things that get in our way, whether it's, you know, habits we can't shake or habits we should take on. But it is about actually being present for our lives, and instead of giving in to failure. We're all going to experience failure, he says. You know, he's a psychoanalyst. He knows that. You know, no one.
Go extinct. So Phillips is
exactly.
Phillips' ideology, if that's the right word, is a sort of presentism, whereas Ware is a futurism, but a pessimistic futurism.
A very, very much a pessimistic futurism in service of the present, I would say. So really interesting books are coming out this year. I find them truly relevant, and the writing is fantastic. And these are things we have to grapple with.
Yeah, and Phillips always seems to me to be a writer who doesn't tell us what we want to hear.
No,
He's
exactly.
counterintuitive and very unusual.
Exactly.
Another writer who doesn't always say what we want to hear is our third nonfiction book of March, Andre Dubus, if I'm pronouncing him right, the third, well known as a novelist, but he has a collection of nonfiction essays out, Ghost Dogs, on killers and kin. Is he more in the Phillips presentism or the Ware futurism school here?
Oh, I would say in the Phillips presentism, and I believe originally his father, Andre Sr., who came from Louisiana, said Dubus, but I'm not sure. We all say Andre Dubus III now, and this is a book that has a great deal to do with confronting toxic masculinity. Look at that subtitle, on killers and kin. And it is really about life at its hardest, life when you're confronting an absolute and you need to make a decision. And that's why I think it's about the presentism of Phillips. Okay. For instance, should I keep this gun that I've had for so long? My family has been hunters. We've done this, we've done that. But what does gun ownership mean right now in this day and age? What does it mean to be rushing my baby son to the hospital? And will I make it to the hospital in time? Will they be able to help him? These are real pain points that Dubus III is writing about. And it's also about what it's like to be an artist living in the shadow of a parent who was an artist. And that suffuses all of the essays, because I said when I recommended this in my LA Times column, that even if he didn't have a famous writer for a father, Dubus would have had plenty of yardsticks against which to measure his achievements, okay? He has to grapple with his grandfather and what it means to be a man to someone like that, with his complicated feelings about privilege. And it's beautifully written, but more important than the beautiful writing to me is the honesty. And he really reflects with a lot of honesty and authenticity about his own feelings. He does not spare himself. He doesn't spare his other family members either, but he doesn't spare himself. That's really key, I think.
And I wonder whether we could fit Phillips back in. Phillips talks about living without regret.
Yes.
Dubus III lives within this very rich intergenerational culture, both in family terms and in a broader culture. Does he agree with Adam Phillips that we need to learn not to regret?
I do think he believes that. He believes that we have to learn to live without regret in order to negotiate our paths to all of these things, to a life of our own. If we don't find a way to get past the regrets, they are going to pull us back. And that is not living in the present. That is living, that's going to fuel your imposter syndrome. I'm sure Phillips, of course, as a psychoanalyst, is very familiar with that term. And that's, I think Dubus III would say, I have to get past all of these things. I have to write about them. This is my way to learn about and process these things so that I don't regret them. I understand them.
I mean, Dubus and Phillips are both, at least in this context, doing nonfiction books. But of course, the literary quality of slaying one's ghosts or confronting one ghost, that's a deeply literary subject, isn't it?
Yes. It really is a deeply literary subject. And, you know, the interesting thing to me is that Dubus's family is from the American South, but he was brought up in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and has written about that upbringing in his incredible memoir, Townie, about the socioeconomic levels and layers in that town. And those are things that are ghosts as their ghost as real as anything that might be a specter.
And after the break, we're going to talk about 3 new novels that all in their own way address the question of how to live with ghosts, how to slay them, or how to live with them. But we want to take a short break. When it comes to literature, Liberties, Quarterly Journal of Culture and Politics, does a wonderful job dealing with subjects which I think cross over both the nonfiction and fiction world. I'm going to run a short feature on Liberties, and then we'll be back with Bethanne Patrick to talk about 3 notable novels that are all published in March of this year. So we'll be back in a second.
Beyond the news, the noise, there is nuance, insight. Liberties is not just a journal of ideas. It's a meteor of intelligent substance. It's the place to be for engaged citizens. Politics, opinion, substance. Liberties is a triumph for freedom of thought. A quarterly of urgency, of cultural exploration, of intellectual delight, of immaculate prose. It's invaluable. Subscribe now or find Liberties at your favorite bookseller.
And you can subscribe to Liberties at libertiesjournal.com. We're speaking with our favorite literary critic, Bethanne Patrick, the book critic of the Los Angeles Times. Lots of great books out in March. In the first part of the show, we talked about 3 interesting nonfiction books, all addressing the question of time and ghosts and how to move forward. We've got 3 interesting new novels, one by Russell Banks. Everybody is familiar with him, called American Spirits. Fascinating new book. It looks fascinating, at least. Bethanne, is this about confronting American ghosts? It's called American Spirits, but might it be called American Ghosts?
You know, first of all, it is a collection of short stories. I want to make sure everyone knows that it's not.
Yeah, short stories.
No, that's fine. But the reason I think it's called American Spirits instead of American Ghosts is partly because of the American Spirit cigarettes that are cheaper. And a lot of the people who inhabit the fictional upstate town where American Spirits is set, you know, are fond of buying their smokes as cheaply as possible.
Although I don't suppose even any cigarette company would have the nerve to call their cigarettes American Ghosts. That might be
no, exactly. And you know, sadly, we lost Banks early last year. He's truly, to me, one of our great American authors and writers, especially because Banks acknowledged many times throughout his career that he was a white man, a cishet white man, who knew that he was obliged to actually find a way to relate to people of color instead of staying, you know, safely and comfortably within an insular culture, as it's so easy for so many white people to do in the United States. He had a truly radical outlook for his time about what it means to be a man, what it means to be a citizen in the United States of America, and what it means for our natural world to be destroyed through greed, through corporate greed, especially. One of my favorites of his novels is I believe the last full novel is The Magic Kingdom, which is set in Florida and concerns a man who inherits a great deal of land. And of course, there is an entertainment company that is interested in buying that land, and he has to make a decision about it. But Banks writes so beautifully. It's just it's just incredible. You can't even envy him. He has such mastery over prose. And in American Spirits, you see a collection of people who are quite different. They're not all the same. They're not all the same.
It's not short stories you usually think is a big collection. There's only 3 stories in this volume.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, there's just 3 stories, but it's about people who are all suffering, people who all have different kinds of social ills affecting them. And it's really balanced. A lot of reviews have talked about how bleak it is. And okay, it is bleak. When he wrote this, Banks was, near the end of his life, but it is also extremely real. And it shows American spirits, American souls in the throes of.
Going back to Adam Phillips suggesting we live without regret, often when novelists in particular write about America, they're full of regret about missed opportunities, missed paths. This is the last book that Banks wrote. So in a sense, he's coming to terms with America and being an American.
Yes.
Is this a book fused with regret or acceptance?
I found it acceptance, not regret. I found it, he's looking at the territory that he wrote about, for instance, in The Sweet Hereafter, and at least one other book whose title I can't remember right now, but he's gone back to this upstate New York bleakness and, a hard climate, a hard scrabble culture. And he's saying, this is how it is. And it's not with regret, as in, oh gosh, it should all be different. This is the way it is. And things should change. There should be things that change, but still we have to look at ourselves.
One of the other books that we dealt with before the break, Andre Dubus's Ghost Dogs on Killer and Kin, deals with the issue of work and the responsibility of working hard. One of the novels that you selected for March of this year is Help Wanted, a novel by Adelle Waldman, which addresses the issue of work in our age of networked AI. Tell me about Help Wanted.
I love this novel so much. And let me just say, having grown up in upstate New York, I grew up in the southern Hudson Valley. A lot of people don't realize that even though American Spirits and Help Wanted are both set in upstate New York, Adelle Waldman lives in Middletown, New York now, and that is close to where I grew up. So that's more southern, whereas Russell Banks's town in American Spirits is probably further up north. So here we've got this kind of, town that's not doing that well. Industry left a while ago. Some of the shopping has left. This big box store that is at the center of Help Wanted isn't even, a Costco or a Walmart. It's something slightly, I don't know, maybe it's a sort of Dollar General on steroids. I don't know.
The kind of place we drive past 1 million times a day.
Exactly. So it's a comic novel and it is hilarious. So basically what's happening is at this store, the team that does logistics, in other words, they unload the trucks that come in and then load trucks when there are things to be returned. So they're not out on the floor. They're not the cashiers. They're not the stock people. They're not doing, marketing or management or anything. They are doing hard work, physical labor, and they start at 3:22 in the morning.
Right, they're the help.
Yeah, so they're really
in the plumbing department of America, where
they do
enable the toilets to work, the toilet that is America to work, essentially.
They do enable it, and yet Adelle Waldman, who has just one other novel to her credit that came out 10 years ago, The Life and Loves of Nathaniel P., also a book that was highly, highly regarded critically, has written this. It's hilarious. She manages to show people as they are and poke fun at their foibles but keeps the compassion all the way through. It's really a remarkable thing. It is not easy to maintain the tone that she does, to have us laughing at, how this ridiculous manager is trying to keep up her airs.
His name is Big Will.
Big Will. There's Big Will. There's another manager. Big Will is pretty funny to tell you the truth. And so
lovely,
there's
beautiful name, Big Will.
I know. And there's this promotion.
We shouldn't call him Big Willie.
Big Will. I can always count on you for a joke like that, Andrew. So Team Movement, the logistics team, spies an opportunity to make things better for themselves. And so thereby hangs a tale. And I guarantee this is just the perfect book to get you through to spring. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you think.
It doesn't, it's not a political book. It doesn't encourage us to burn down our local Walmart.
No, this is a book that is just, it is a book that will make you think harder about what happens and how the goods get to the local Walmart. But no, it won't make you want to burn it down.
And what about ghosts? Are there any ghosts in this book?
You know, no, there are no ghosts, except there are a couple of members of Team Movement who sort of have maybe, voices in their heads.
Well, it's a refreshingly funny book about perhaps a not particularly funny story, what it's like to work in a Walmart-style store, Help Wanted by Adelle Waldman. The final book, a little bit more perhaps serious, certainly not a humor book, is Marie Mutsuki Mockett's new novel, The Tree Doctor, which addresses all the traditional regrets and issues, age, family, responsibilities, parents of contemporary literature. Tell me about this book.
It's a really unusual and beautiful book. Marie Mutsuki Mockett is an author who has written nonfiction before. And this novel is about a woman who winds up stranded during the pandemic from her family in Hong Kong because of the pandemic. And so she is in Carmel, California, taking care of her aging mother. And the mother has a garden that she wants the garden really taken care of. And there is a dormant cherry tree that becomes quite an amazing central symbol and metaphor in this book for renewal, as the protagonist hires a tree doctor to help with all of this and has a very juicy, steamy affair with said tree doctor. So it is one of the best accounts of female desire that I have read in a long time. And yes, it's, on one hand, you might call it aging female desire, but I don't think it really matters, because I think women of many different ages will understand what it means to have lost your libido, not just sexual, not just, about sexual acts, but to, your libido as a place that has so much energy and vitality.
Promise.
And yeah,
belief
exactly.
in the future. So oddly enough, it's a good way to end after the depressing beginning with Ben Ware on extinction. Marie Mutsuki Mockett's new novel is about desire, hope, renewal.
It is. And it's cherry tree season here in DC. So I love being able to end with this book about a cherry tree. So.
And is it, Ben Ware, of course, is male. Is there a female quality to this optimism? Is it different, perhaps a bit more grounded, a bit more literal, rooted in nature in this tree than the male version?
I think that's a wonderful question, Andrew. And I do think that this is a book that is more grounded in a present moment than a lot of the other books we discussed today, because this is about a woman who has to take care of something. She has to take care of her mother. She has to take care of this tree, but she also has to take care of herself. And she finds ways through to doing those things.
So think small. Don't worry about the extinction of the human race. Enjoy your cherry tree. Is that it, Bethanne?
No comment. I cannot decide for any individual out there, but I will say, gosh, contemplating cherry trees, there could be a worse way to go.